Good evening and welcome to the March 18, 2013 meeting of the Lake Forest City Council. Could I ask the clerk to call the roll, please?
Sure. Acting Mayor Schoenheider.
Here.
Alderman Novit.
Here.
Alderman Waldeck.
Here.
Alderman Moore.
Here.
Alderman Pandaleon is absent. Alderman Tack.
Here.
Alderman Reisenberg.
Here.
Alderman Palmer.
Here.
Alderman Adelman.
Here.
7-1. Mr. Acting Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Biddy, very much. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda this evening is reports of city officers, comments by mayor. I don't really have anything other than to thank Alderman Novit for pinch hitting for me 2 weeks ago. Thank you very much.
No, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, it's great.
Big shoes to fill.
Not much. So that's it. Next item on the agenda, comments by city manager. Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. There are 2 items on the published agenda, and then I'm going to add a 3rd item to give an update on the conversation we had earlier this evening with respect to EAB. But the first item on the agenda, I want to set some context before I ask Susan Kelsey, our Economic Development Coordinator, to come up. Many of you will recall that we had a small business operating in town called Coyote Logistics that grew from almost nothing into 200 plus employees. Unfortunately, then the city of Chicago induced them to relocate down into the city of Chicago. And as the mayor and I met with a local business person today, and he said, you know, we really felt the effects of that business coming out of Lake Forest and the impact that it had on his business. And it was something that Susan Kelsey and I have had casual conversations about is there a way that the city of Lake Forest can establish a business or an opportunity for a business to grow in Lake Forest, and then hopefully we'll do a little better job this time of trying to induce them to stay here as they grow and to find other alternative space for them within the corporate boundaries of the city of Lake Forest. So the good news with Susan Kelsey is if you just give her a little idea, she runs with it. And I think you're going to be very excited to hear about how quickly she has run with this. And we actually have some of the businesses that are operating out of the Lake Forest Incubator program with us this evening. So Susan, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, thank you. The Lake Forest Business and Technology Incubator is actually set under the city's strategic plan. It's part of our local momentum, local movement continuum. We started 5 years ago really focusing on retaining our businesses in Lake Forest, recruiting new ones, local businesses. And then 2 years ago we started the farmers market where we encourage people eating locally, having locally sustainable food. And now what we want to do is the next step with the business incubator, and that is to grow local businesses and grow local jobs. So the Business and Technology Incubator is located over on the Grove Cultural Campus, and that's where the Senior Center is located. There's also the Music Institute, the Career Resource Center, and Sterling Hall. And it's a self-sustaining building, 2-story brick building. It has 9 offices, and I guess we could just start at what is a business incubator, and if you're familiar with what they've been doing in Chicago with Mayor Emanuel in the 1871 down there, 2 Lake Forest College interns and I went down and toured all the incubators in Chicago, then the incubator in Evanston, and really tried to find out what is it that they're doing down there. And it was really offering some type of a shared, co-share workspace at a reduced rate that will allow some of these businesses to get started. But also the magic is what happens in between the walls, and that's what we're finding with ours too. Why an incubator? Is there a need for one in Lake Forest? About 3 years ago, we started receiving a number of phone calls from residents that were opening home-based businesses. They were thinking about launching a new business, what types of licenses were required, what types of resources did the city have. And then about 2 years ago, we had a focus group at the Gorton Community Center with Sandy Harlow, and we talked about co-sharing space. And we launched the incubator last May at Gorton with just 3 cubicles, and we were full in about 12 hours. So now Mr. Kiley donated a vacant building that was at the Grove Cultural Campus. He has 9 offices. We're completely full. We have a waiting list. And we even created a new category where you could be an incubator member just for $25 a year, just so you could come to some of those public meetings and get the resources. So Lake Forest has a long-standing history of entrepreneurial spirit and home to a lot of businesses. So why now? Well, I think it's the economy. Doing a lot of research, metrics on how we can evaluate the success of this incubator. Our goal really is to fill Lake Forest office space 100%. When we started focusing on the retail businesses 5 years ago, we are almost at 100% full of retail spaces. We want to do that with the office space. We want to enhance our entrepreneurial climate, which we know we already have. There's a lot of businesses up on the top of Market Square, and so we want to fill more of those spaces. We want to create new businesses and new jobs, as Mr. Kiley mentioned. When Coyote left, that was 200 jobs. That was 200 lunches. That was 200 parking permits. So we, with our incubator, we have already created 22 jobs. So that's one thing we will be measuring. We want to retain the businesses in the community. And we also are tying it into our farmers market. We have a number of people that are launching businesses and joining the farmers market and have never written a business plan. So we're finding resources for them, how to write their business plans so they can be successful in our local farmers market and support our home-based businesses. So why are they worthy of our attention? There's a couple of statistics that we pulled from the National Association of Business Incubators. And for every dollar invested, there's $30 of a local tax revenue that is generated. And for our business incubator, we have 9 offices. We generate about $15,000 a year, yet our expenses are only $4,000. So there's really no public money supporting our business incubator. But the better news is 84% of the business incubators really tend to stay in the community, and that's always been our goal, is to create more jobs locally and fill our office space. So as I said, there's 9 office suites. There's 2 floors. There's 4 on the top floor, 5 on the first floor, plus we have an additional 17 people that are members. We have reached out and touched some strategic partners. Lake Forest College is one of them. Professor Darlene Jafke teaches entrepreneurial economics and business at the college, and so she's got her students involved. Next fall, 2 of them will be starting up their businesses at our incubator, so they're heavily involved, and they're also providing interns for us. Lake County Partners, which is our Lake County Economic Development Agency, one of their 6 initiatives is really entrepreneurship, so we're working closely with them, and we'll probably be doing a fall speaker with them. And then the state of Illinois has tremendous resources, kind of a hidden secret over at the College of Lake County. And they come over to the incubator once a month and meet with our businesses and work on business plans. So I have 3 businesses here with us today that thought they would take a minute or 2 and just introduce their business and talk about how the business incubator is helping them. James Dean, who started, they're all levels of stages. James Dean is starting his business, Family Recovery. Meg Barnhart has started the Zen of Slow Cooking, is also involved in our farmers market. And John Walsh, who is with 10 by 10 Digital Marketing, just hosted our digital workshop for all of our retailers last Thursday. And Meg's left some treats up there for you. So I'll invite them up to come up and introduce their businesses.
Good evening, everybody. My name is James Dean, or Jim Dean, and I'm the recent founder of Family Recovery TV. I'm actually a new resident of Lake Forest, grew up here, and it's very nice to be back, so I appreciate the opportunity to be up here tonight. Family Recovery TV was an idea that was born out of a 15-year war that my family encountered with my brother's addiction. Unfortunately, that was a war that he did not survive and passed away about 2 years ago. The kind of mission of Family Recovery TV is to help families confront and conquer addiction. And we want to leverage technology to be able to provide families just-in-time training, tools, and resources to have the help that they need during the critical moment at home, and also to help drive long-term happiness and health within the family unit. So for example, if you're a mom or dad, or a sister or brother, or a husband or wife, you can actually pull up your app on your iPhone or your smartphone, your iPad, and get that just-in-time tool and training that you need to be able to help conquer or deal with that situation at the time it occurs. I just joined the Lake Forest Technology Incubator Group a couple months ago. Through Susan's leadership, she led me to the CEO Roundtable. Through the CEO Roundtable, that led me to the small business at the state of Illinois for some coaching around my business plan. And then actually I hired a local resource and intern from Lake Forest College to help revamp all my websites. So my goal is to grow this business, keep it in Lake Forest, and obviously use local resources to help build it and increase it in size. So I appreciate the opportunity to present our business tonight. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Meg Barnhart. I am the founder of the Zen of Slow Cooking, and I was the first person to join the incubator. Love Susan Kelsey. We were all gonna love Susan Kelsey. I mean, she's just been a tremendous advocate for us and resource, and attended focus groups and brainstorming sessions, and she takes pictures of spice jars that she thinks are really great. So she's been wonderful. Jan Bauer from Lake County Small Business Administration has been also wonderful in helping us pull together a business plan. And other incubator members. After one of our early meetings, one of our fellow incubator is friends with a quinoa importer, and the next week I showed up and I had a huge box of quinoa on my front doorstep. So that was great, because in January we did a whole recipe on Peruvian. I was in Peru, and quinoa, so it was great. And I guess the last thing I'd like to say about the incubator, which has been really heartwarming, is the outpouring support from other Lake Forest residents. People have been so supportive. Anne Marie Scheidler, called me up right away. How can I help? What can I do? Lee called me. What can I do? Get you in the welcoming church. Let me get you out there. So I just think that really speaks to to our community. I mean, how we really help each other grow and support each other. So it's been wonderful. I left all of you a piece of our pumpkin chocolate chip bread and some information. So follow us on the web. Information's back there. We'd love for you to follow our journey.
Hello, I'm John Walsh. I am a resident of the incubator, so I'm one of the 9 offices. I'm on the top floor, right window. Stop by anytime. My business is 10 by 10 Digital Marketing. We're a digital marketing consulting firm. Candidly, not a ton of local employees. A lot of our employees are scattered throughout the United States and contracted. But as Susan mentioned, we did just host a digital marketing workshop here for all the local businesses we had. The bookstore was here, Lake Forest Shop was here, I know the Mustard Seed was here, Healanders, a lot of the local retailers, and it was a sort of here are the different channels. Here's a review of the opportunities you might have from a digital marketing perspective. And the room was really sophisticated, and we had a lot of great conversation. They fed off each other. We were able to offer our perspectives, some of which they took, some of which they didn't. And I think there's going to be follow-up that's going to be a little more hands-on this time around. But for me personally, and there are a couple of local resources. The incubator's been great. It's a great networking opportunity. The opportunity to present here Thursday was great. My mailbox is full with lots of questions. But I used to work in the city. I no longer work in the city, and so really appreciate it. And I'm also the unofficial social chairman of the incubator, so you will all soon learn of an open house and a barbecue, and I hope you can stop by and say hello. So, thank you.
So that's just 3 of our businesses. We have a number of technology businesses. We have retail. We have some medical devices. We have pharmaceutical. Ages 18 to 75. So with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions. While we're answering questions, I just thought I'd put up in terms of our economic gardening, there's 6 new businesses that have opened or will be opening up very shortly. Aska, which is on Market Square, a women's clothing store, UPS on Deerpath. Jolly Goodfellows will open in May. She's took the former Toy Station space and has cupcakes and all kinds of fun stuff. Market Square opened their fish house. Mark David Designs on Deerpath. He's in interior design. And Wildflower Bakery will be coming to town. And there's actually about 4 more businesses coming, but they're not ready to be announced yet. So with that, that's our economic gardening, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Is there a word we can use other than entrepreneur, which is French? And I don't really believe the French deserve that word anymore.
Any other questions?
We'll move on from him, Susan. Don't worry. Thank you for a terrific story. Thank all 3 of you for coming tonight. And Susan, as you've heard from us before, thanks for all your great work. Keep it up.
Thanks, and we hope those 3 businesses are hugely successful, and you have 200 employees in a couple of years as well. So, thank you. The next item on the agenda is always a treat, and I know that, well, it's 35 degrees out and snow on the ground. It's hard to think about 4th of July, but we have a wonderful event coming up in the city of Lake Forest, and we have representatives of the Lake Forest Parks and Recreation Foundation here. Mark Millen, the president, is going to give you some insider information about what's going to happen this 4th of July. So, Mark?
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Again, I'm Mark Milliman. I'm the president of the Friends of Lake Forest Parks and Rec Foundation, and we are we're the ones that actually put the 4th of July on every year. We took it over from the Symphony a few years back, and we are in our 7th year this year. So I want to give you a little bit of information, very short presentation on what the Friends do. Our mission is to make Lake Forest Parks and Recreation facilities and programs the best in the United States. That's what we do on a daily basis. We try to raise money, and we try to support the Park and Rec Department as much as we can, as often as we can. We do that, as I mentioned before, that we support certainly the 4th of July, which is our main fundraiser. We also handle a lot of need-based scholarships, staff training and conferences. We did make a $300,000 commitment, of which we paid 1/3 of so far to Town Line Park Pavilion. We've done countless improvements in town, including baseball diamond improvements, dance studio equipment, Deerpath golf course improvements, playground enhancements, and sailboats down at the lake. So we've done quite a few great things in our time with the foundation. As I mentioned before, we are an event-based foundation. We've got two main things that we do. The Festival and Fireworks, which is every year on 4th of July. This is our 7th year, as I mentioned before, and we've had some great acts over the years. Last year we had Kenny Loggins, the year before Rick Springfield, Casey and the Sunshine Band, Village People and Any Money let us off in the first year. So we've had a lot of really great acts, and we're going to continue to do that again this year with another great act. The other thing that we do is the Fred Jackson Golf Classic, which is the first Friday in June. And I believe I've seen quite a few of you guys out there on the golf course with us. We'd love to have you come out again. We certainly love having all the aldermen and the mayor join us every year. And that will be that first Friday in June, which I believe is June 5th, I believe. We've had thousands of local players come through, and we've raised a lot of great money. And we have a real nice time out there. Wildlife Discovery shows their things. A lot of the different great programs that we have do some things. I don't know if you've played in it. We've got alligators crawling all over the greens and all sorts of fun stuff on one of the holes. It's a great event. Our support runs pretty deep, not only through a lot of local businesses. Certainly Lake Forest Bank and Trust is our presenting sponsor every year. They've been with us almost since the beginning. Fields Volvo has been with us from the beginning, but as you can see from that list, we've got a lot of great corporate and also family support from folks around the city, and we're always looking for more. This year we're going to have Dennis DeYoung, formerly of Styx. He's going to be our main stage performer, and we're very excited to have him this year. So we're very excited about that. Dennis DeYoung comes very highly recommended, and he is actually a local talent from Chicago. So we're very, very excited to have him come with us, come play for us this year. The reason why we're here tonight is you've had a formal request presented to you. We're looking to get what you've very generously given us over the last 2 years. So this will be the 3rd year we're asking for the same thing, and that is specifically to waive the personnel expenses up to a maximum of $25,000. In addition to that, the city has been very generous in giving us $10,000 towards the fireworks every year, which this year actually, like everything else, prices have gone up. So we are looking at about about a 20% increase in the cost of the fireworks. Most recently, we did actually work with Amwencia Club, and we are now shooting them off from the Amwencia golf course, which is great. What that allows us to do is give us more room, and then there's been some setback changes in the laws that have happened over the last few years. Because we've moved them further away, we actually have to shoot them up further so people can see them. Last year's show was very well received. However, we're going to make it even nicer this year. We do need to put larger shells in there so that they go up a little bit higher, and that's one of the reasons why we have the additional cost. Any questions on the ask? It is the same one that we've asked for the last, and has been provided over the last 3 years.
I might just add that those figures are included in your FY14 proposed budget, but if the council sees fit, you might want to make a motion and approve the expenditure this evening.
So moved.
Have a second. Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Novit.
Aye.
Alderman Waldeck. Alderman Moore.
Aye.
Alderman Tack. Alderman Reisenberg.
Aye.
Alderman Palmer. Alderman Adelman.
Aye.
7 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries.
Just one quick question. Does the mayor get to light off the fireworks, or?
That may be able to be arranged.
I'm not good with matches, so that's not.
We're gonna need him on stage, so.
Okay.
It's about a mile away. If anyone's interested in, for additional donations or anything like that, as I said before, there's a lot of people that support this wonderful event. We do raise quite a bit of money, and it goes right back into the Park and Rec coffers. So my contact information, I'll leave it up there if anyone needs to contact me. And certainly you can get all the information on the website as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.
Mark, thanks very much. Thanks for all the great work you do and the terrific job you do supporting our system. So it's great to have you back.
Glad to be back.
I'm going to move over here. We should do is raffle off the opportunity to do backup singing to Dennis DeYoung. That'd be worth something, right?
Yeah, good luck.
You do have that? Oh. I'd have to start working on my stick song repertoire.
And when if you come to the foundation meetings, they just hold up their phones and we all play. All the entertainment we hold up to, listen to all the phones. It's very fun.
Earlier this evening, the City Council had a budget meeting, Finance Committee meeting, to review the proposed FY14 budget. And included in that was further conversation, discussion regarding the Emerald Ash Borer program that the city is looking for. And I want to try and focus on the upcoming year and then what our goal is long-term within the city. Because I think as we learned in early March when we first started talking about this, and as the staff has been reviewing comments and suggestions by the aldermen and others since that time, this is a very dynamic program, and it's ever-changing, and it's because we're working with living and breathing organisms, and so it's very difficult to say exactly how many trees are going to just die and when. It's almost like trying to guess how many potholes we're going to have this time of year too, which seems to be growing exponentially. But we've tried to very quickly to simplify the presentation that you saw a couple of months ago, to sort of lay out what's going to happen this year specifically, and then as we go forward. Very plainly or very simply, the EAB program can be broken down into 3 major categories. One is the development of resident guide, which I'll mention here in a moment. Number 2 is the development of and the inventory of the the ash trees on other park and public properties outside of what was done with the street tree inventory that was completed in this last year. With respect to the resident guide, we're really looking at a couple of different components. We're not looking to take on the cost of either removing or replacing the trees on individual private properties, but what we are trying to do is serve as a resource for the residents of Lake Forest, because we recognize that residents' learning curve is very wide, and some know what an ash tree looks like. I did not myself. All the trees look alike to me. But understanding what they look like, what my options are, what the cost implications are, and where do I go for help. So the first phase of this is really to work with our what will be shortly updated new website in the city, and there will be a very easily accessible link that will take you to the EAB component of our website. There we will have on there the inventory that was recently completed by Davey. We'll have a simple Q&A, which we're also talking about mailing to every household in town, that gives them a very simple, easy to understand overview of the EAB program. Also a listing of contractors. We have certified contractors who operate in the town, and this will be a list of, if you think you have some trees, here's some contractors you can call. Also, if you have to remove ash trees, what would be the plant list that would develop a variety of trees within our community so that we don't see at any one point in time 20% of our tree inventory going out in one year. Also, we'll help to explain what are the steps for removing trees, for planting trees within the city's permitting and regulation process. The second component of this is that on Saturday, June 1st, we will be holding a resident workshop at Gorton Community Center. We'll be getting lots of information out to the community about this. But the idea there is to provide a quick overview to the residents as to what we've learned, what Davie has learned by doing their inventory, but then more importantly to have breakout sessions so residents can go to resources within the community like Lake Forest Open Lands, like Lake Forest College, city staff and others to get answers to their question about what should they do. Should they treat their tree? Should they not treat the tree? Should they do this? Should they do that? And I might also add that we've reached out to the Village of Lake Bluff and they also want to partner in that program. So it will be a joint Lake Forest, Lake Bluff program. The cost to the city is going to be very minimal. It'll be some printing costs. It'll be staff time for the June 1st meeting, as well as the staff. Peter Gordon and the forestry crews are always available to come out to a homeowner's house, take a look at their situation, let them know what they have. I will always tell you from my own experience, you don't want Peter to come out because then he'll tell you what you have, which isn't always good news, but at least then you know what the news is and you can go forward from there. When we did the inventory last year for the street parkways tree inventory, we recognized at that time that we couldn't tackle the park and public properties. We have approximately 85 other parcels of land in town that we, this year, will conduct a tree inventory with the $20,000 that's in the proposed FY14 CIP. And we will inventory exactly what is on all of our various parks and other properties that we have that go beyond just those street trees. Now, I will say that the city does have a number of what we call wooded lot parcels that we're not using for active park purposes or anything like that, that we will not be conducting inventory on those sites because, quite candidly, on those sites, if an ash tree dies and falls down, we're just going to leave it there. We're not going to worry about replacing it. We're not going to worry about removing it unless it presents a hazard to public health and safety, and then we will step in. But other than that, we're just going to let those parcels go. What we will do as the data becomes available to us, we will be coordinating with the Property and Public Land Committee and also the Park and Recreation Board as to how do we want to deal with these parcels and how do we want to deal with the replacement of potential ash trees that we're going to lose, because in some cases we might decide they don't need to be replaced. That they might be in a position in a public park that it's better to leave it open. I was hoping that there'd be more trees at Deerpath Golf Course that we would lose. Unfortunately, staff tells me there's not many ash there because there's about 20 trees I'd like to get rid of. But those are the kinds of conversations that we would have in terms of really trying to identify what we're going to replace, how we would deal with them, and whether or not we would have the same policies on these park and public properties as we would on the right-of-way trees. At the last meeting, we also talked about the idea of treatment, and let me just say very honestly and upfront that the idea of treating trees doesn't make any financial sense, because the staff will tell you that with the emerald ash borer, all the ash trees will die eventually. And you know, the ash tree in and of itself, even if we didn't have the borer, doesn't have the same lifespan that, say, an oak or another hardwood would have in the first place. But in this case, it's hard to justify from a financial standpoint why you would do treating anyways, except for an aesthetic standpoint. And this is, I think, a good example. This is Harlan Lane. And when you take a look at the canopy that exists right there right now, it's beautiful. It adds to the ambiance of the area and obviously impacts the quality of life for the people who live along Harlan. And when we came back first time to the City Council, we said that roughly 20% of our trees are ash trees. Unfortunately, they're not spread out equally amongst the community. And Harlan is a good example because if we go to this next slide, and you can see there between the yellow and green dots that are there, the yellow dots are ash trees. So when you think about this previous slide that we just looked at, 89% of those trees are ash trees and will get lost. And so the question then becomes, is it worth to treat some of them to reduce the impact that losing all those trees in a very short period of time will have? Or Do we say, you know what, we're going to lose them anyways, and we'll come through and we'll just clear cut the trees and remove them? That's the kind of policy that we have to talk about, but that was one of the reasons that the staff initially included some treatment costs, just in case we wanted to ease the impact that the loss of these trees would have. Another area, though, to look at, and this is Deerpath, just west of Lake Road. You'll see that there are some very large trees there. This was recently taken, but there you can see that, with the exception of a couple of clumps on the far right-hand side of the screen there, that there aren't as many ash trees along this stretch as there had been on Harlan Lane. And so therefore we might decide, okay, here there's only 1 or 2 properties that are being impacted. We can go ahead and remove them, and it's not going to have the same detrimental impact on the aesthetics that it would have in some other areas. So that's the kind of judgment call, and that's the kind of conversation that we're going to have before the Park and Public Land Committee, the full City Council, the staff. And I might add, in terms of the residents too, because it's going to be something we're going to engage them in at June 1 when we have our meeting, because the homeowner who lives, hopefully I don't turn this thing off. Let's say on this homeowner here, they have, I think, 5 ash trees in their front yard. They might say, you know what, city, even if you don't treat them, I want to treat them, because I don't want to lose those 5 large ash trees in front of my house. And so we're going to be, I'm sure, working with individual homeowners through the course of this as they become educated and they understand what their options are. Conversely, the homeowner might say, you know what, they're going to die anyways, get rid of them and bring me 5 some other kind of variety of trees that they might have. So I think that's the kind of thing that we're going to have to assess as we move forward and see what the real impact is on the individual homes. In the current budget, we have $200,000 set aside, and as I mentioned earlier, while we have used these as placeholders, it does not mean that this is necessarily where we're going to spend the funding. We might decide that we need to spend $100,000 in removal and $100,000 in replacement, or we might want to put more in treatment and less in replacement. Those will be the kinds of discussions we will have moving forward. I will also add that at the direction of the City Council earlier this evening, that number will move from $200,000 to $400,000 in anticipation that this is going to be a very large project that we're going to have to take care of in a short period of time. But to sort of recap some of the things that we talked about here earlier too, is that, the cost variables and why this is so difficult to really get your arms around from an actual dollars and cents standpoint is the issue of, do we treat, do we not treat, and if we are going to treat, what kind of treatment? Because an injection system might be $75 a tree, a drench system is $5 a tree, but the injection system is a lot more effective than a drench. And those would be the kinds of things as we go forward that we'd have to talk about. Replace 1 for 1. And then if we do replace 1 for 1, what size do we replace with? What type of tree do we replace with? All those things will affect the cost as well. And then one that we talked about as well is uh-oh. Now I'm in trouble. What button did I hit? All right, can you remove that for me, please? I thought I hit the laser, but clearly I didn't. Thank you. Right now, there is a cost-sharing program within the city of Lake Forest. If they remove a tree in front of Bob Kiley's house, it might take me 2 or 3 years before it gets budgeted that it can be replaced. If I want it replaced right away, I can say, well, I'll share in the cost 50-50, and then that puts me at the top of the list. As we move forward with this, there might be a lot of people that say, I'm not going to wait 2 or 3 years for a replacement tree. I want a tree right now. And so we're really going to have to assess whether or not that cost-sharing program is an incentive or disincentive, how it might work going forward, and whether or not we can actually replace as many trees as might be coming out over the course of the next couple of years as well. So these are all variables that are going to play into as we further refine our funding requirements as we move forward. I won't go through in this in great detail. This was talked about earlier this evening, but basically we looked at 2 options. Option 1 at the top here, or option 2 at the top here, was to do no treating whatsoever. and therefore we made the assumption that basically all the ash trees would be gone within the course of the next 3 to 4 years. Option 4 becomes a combination of treating, removing, and as we talked about earlier this evening, when the presentation was made back in early March, the worst case scenario was presented from the standpoint it was the most expensive treatment for the longest period of time. And as we came back and refined it based on input that we got from the city council, we said, well, that doesn't make sense. If we're going to be removing these trees eventually, can we use the cheaper format for some, look at some of the heritage trees that we may want to preserve longer term. And so we've tried to refine the numbers there. But again, this is still best guesses to this point. And as we continue to move forward with our program in 2013, that we're going to learn a lot more, and I think a year from now have much better numbers and an idea of how many we may want to treat or how many we're going to replace or lose over the next couple of years. So the recommendation was to approve, in this case, 200, but the council has authorized 400,000 in the inclusion in the FY14 CIP. Proceed with the resident workshop on June 1st. Also proceed with $20,000 that's in the budget to do the inventory on the public properties, those 85 parcels that I mentioned. And also then, as this data becomes available, working with the Park and Public Land Committee of the City Council, the Park and Recreation Board, and also staff to really look and evaluate at what this future direction should be. So when we meet in the fall of 2013 to go over the CIP budget for FY15, we hopefully will have a much better refined program going forward. Be happy to answer any questions that anybody might have, but this is sort of the latest as of 5 o'clock this evening with respect to the city's EAB. And as I think it was pointed out and mentioned earlier, there's going to be a lot of conversation about EAB throughout the course of 2013 in Lake Forest.
I have a question. Bob, why did staff believe that $200,000 was the right number?
I think initially, again, we put that number in, would have been in August of 12. And we know that the emerald ash borer is here, but we were just starting to see signs of its devastation, if you will. I think the question was, we knew we were going to have to spend a lot of money. We just didn't know how quickly it was going to take hold in the city of Lake Forest. And so I think we felt as though $200,000 was a good first step the first year, and then we could either spread that out or contract our costs depending on which way the council and the community wanted to go, either treating or not treating trees going forward. But we thought that it was a manageable number the first year. Keep in mind that this is $200,000 of what we would have to contract out. So over and above this $200,000 would then be costs of our forestry department to remove trees, to treat trees, and other things that we would do on a normal day-to-day basis.
And do you agree with the proposal to double it, or do you think that 200,000 is still the number for today?
Well, I would say that if we doubled it, I can't say to you this evening that we would actually spend that, but it's there if, as a cushion or a savings account, if you will, if for whatever reason we wanted to be much more aggressive moving forward. And that would really, I think, come back from our conversations with both the Park and Rec Board and the Property and Public Lands Committee. My guess, it would be very hard for us to spend the full $400,000, but it is there as a cushion in case something unforeseen happens.
Thank you.
I'd just like to point out that when the city goes through this process, it's going to be a little bit of an education for the public, which is why, and thank you, Bob, for reading this again on television. This is very likely, according to people in forestry that I've spoken to, could cost every household in Lake Forest $1,000 or more. It's a big deal. So what we learn with this initial work hopefully will set a course for the residents. But bigger lots, as you said, you cut 30 down in your yard, and there's a lot of them out there. It'll be a big impact. And we will have another opportunity I think I understood earlier, to go through and look at options of blending of cutting and treating, where we're relating to numbers of trees or dollars? That'll
We
happen.
are.
Good.
I would say that probably we're going to have a better sense after the June 1st public meeting, because I think we want to get some sense from them as to what are they feeling, what the impact is going to be on their homes. Because one of the things certainly the staff is very sensitive to is, as was reported, 20% of our inventory just on the street trees is our ash that we are going to lose. We are just assuming right now, without any real data, that that may also apply to all the other public properties that we have. But then, if you assume that that's the same percentage that residents are going to experience, then you're talking significant numbers of trees that will be lost just within the corporate limits of the city. And so the city actually may find itself in a position where we want to try and keep ours a little longer, just because the residents are moving very quickly to remove theirs. And if we did all of them at one time, there will be a changed look in Lake Forest, and I think we have to prepare ourselves. I mean, Alderman Novit knows that because he experienced it firsthand down in his neighborhood, and it changes the landscape very quickly.
Yeah, one comment though, the more you talk about it, it's inevitable. It is going to affect everyone, and the landscape is going to change very quickly. You could use the chemicals to forestall it, but truly, selfishly in my lifetime, I want to see the treescape. At this point in time, we have to think for next generation. The quicker we get the replanting, the quicker it'll be replenished. So again, we're gifting towards the future. It's something we can't avoid. It's here. I did have one question for the city forester, and it's again a little off the wall question that was referred to me from a resident, just on the concept of, can you burn the ash logs at this point? Because as far as infestation goes, it's here. You can't really forestall infestation.
I'm going to ask Chuck Myers to come up on that, because I'd say yes, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, because before we didn't want to do it to stop it from spreading, but we're
Right.
infected. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, you can burn it. The whole area is quarantined. I mean, you can move logs in the region, so burning is fine. There is no slowing this down anymore. In the early years, they thought they could, but not anymore.
So
it's not trying to wipe out the problem by any means by not.
you might have a large stack of firewood at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure it was all
Wood
right.
chips could be left in the yard as well for play areas and
Yeah.
things to mitigate costs for residents?
Yeah, they can be. They recommend that you chip down to 1 inch, but again, it's so prevalent out there. But 1 inch or smaller will take care of the larva as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions
Any
for
other
Bob?
questions on that?
Okay, great, thanks very much. Next item on the agenda, comments by council members. Alderman Moore, report on your meeting.
At the last meeting, we handed out a copy of the community engagement meeting, the first one that we had regarding Granny Flats. And I think you've all had, I passed it out again this week, and for those of you who weren't here, you have a copy of it this week. I think it went well. I think the concept of Granny Flats, which is turning either, I'm struggling over the language all the time. The opportunity to either take second floors over garages or auxiliary buildings and turn them into residents on a single property provides an opportunity to create value in real estate, create jobs, create a more mixed housing stock, make large estates more affordable as their costs could be augmented with income. That's kind of the concept there. At this point, the community at the meeting put together opportunities, concerns, and categorically conclusions and options for next steps. And I would just like to ask the City Council at this point to recommend or to direct the Plan Commission to consider in old public meetings on possible amendments and zoning codes to authorize secondary living units on properties and existing coach houses, carriage houses, and garage apartments. And then they can take it from here.
Any motion for that?
Sure.
Second.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, it does pass. Anything else, David? Thanks. We will, and Rob, I do have the list, we will have some additional community forums that we'll continue out through the year. I'll quickly tick them off. We'd encourage residents to get involved, come out. David had some terrific response and some great feedback and good input. And very quickly, April 18, Alderman Pandaleon will be running a differentiated housing opportunities meeting. May 16th, Alderman Adelman will have a meeting discussing native plantings.
I think that's the 18th,
Okay, I had the 16th, but it's the 18th?
I believe.
Okay.
Which, whatever is a Thursday.
That's 18th's a Saturday.
So it'll
Oh,
be the
then it's
16th.
the
It's a
16th.
good thing we found
Thank you.
out. You'd show up on Saturday.
That's your golf day.
Yeah. June 20th, Alderman Novit with refuse collection and recycling. July 18th, Alderman Reisenberg with water, waste, recycling, and energy. September 19th, Alderman Waldeck, vitality of the CBD. October 17th, Alderman Tack, subject to ravines. And November 21st, Alderman Palmer with disputes with neighbors, which should be interesting right around Thanksgiving. So we'd encourage, assuming those are on the city website, we'd encourage all the residents to pick one or two that you're interested in. Please come out. We're interested in getting your feedback, getting your input, and getting your ideas. And we're looking forward to continuing that throughout the balance of the year.
And I'll just make a pitch for the May 16th one. The Community Engagement Forum will be on native plants or native plantings, which I think all the residents will find very interesting.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, opportunity for citizens to address the City Council on 9 agenda items. And seeing none, we'll move on to items for omnibus vote consideration, and I will read these off one at a time. If there are any items that any member of the council would like to take separately, please, we can do that, but I will continue on unless you tell me otherwise. Item number 1, City Council approval to authorize the winter 2013-2014 salt purchases. Item number 2, award of purchases for the replacement of a 1-ton dump truck for the parks section included in the FY 2014 capital equipment budget. Number 3, approval of capital expense and award of bid for replacement of recreation center public restroom lockers and benches. Item number 4, approval of a 1-year New World software maintenance agreement with New World Systems covering police and fire software programs. Number 5, consideration of an ordinance approving a recommendation from the Building Review Board, first reading and if desired by the council, final approval. And item number 6, approval of the March 4, 2013 regular City Council minutes. Anyone want to take any of those items separately? If not, I'll ask for a motion to approve.
And move to approve the 6 omnibus items.
Do I have a second? Second, I need a roll call vote, please. Brady?
Alderman Novit.
Aye.
Alderman Waldeck.
Aye.
Alderman Pandaleon is absent. Alderman Moore.
Aye.
Alderman Tack.
Aye.
Alderman Reisenberg.
Aye.
Alderman Palmer. Alderman Adelman.
Aye.
7 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries.
Thanks, Brady, very much. Next item on the agenda this evening is ordinances, consideration of an ordinance amending the City of Lake Forest Liquor Code, and tonight is first reading only. Vic, is that you?
That is, Mr. Mayor. Acting Mayor Schoenheider, members of the council, before you tonight, first reading is an update of our existing liquor code. There is a black line version in your packet. I think the main things that you will see as changes are, first, there was an effort to consolidate the number of licensed categories. You may say we didn't do a very good job because we only went from 28 to 21. I would note that 2 of them are new and most of them are special categories. The rationale that we tried to follow on this, and typically what you have with the regulation or with the licensed categories are package stores, which are for off-premises consumption, on-premises consumption, which is usually restaurants and the like. You have some which could offer it either, and you'll see that the B1 category is one that can either be on-site or off-site. The wine and the golf course are two examples of that. We have clubs, which is the D licenses. Oh, I should also note that we have distinctions between those which sell beer and wine only and those which sell broader range of alcoholic beverages, including spirits. And then we have clubs, which is the D1 under the list that's up there. We have some specialty, which is hotel or residential facilities. And then we have not-for-profit clubs in the F1. The whole F category, it's fair to say, is a series of special types of events or activities. And in particular, you'll note that in the draft we have a new F6 and F7, which do not have fees associated with them. Those are the brand new ones, and they relate to an event that we did as an experiment last fall with the Oktoberfest, and associated with Market House. Thank you. I was going to use Deerpath, but Market House, and the other is with the upcoming BMW event at Conway Golf Course. So that is the overall approach we've taken. Again, we were able to pare it down from 28 to 19 and then add 2 more just for good measure so we could stay over 20. We were going to call blackjack, but we decided that wouldn't be appropriate. A couple of other things that we've done in terms of the overall ordinance. One, we have added a provision, you'll find it in section 4.9 at numbers 23 and 24, to provide some flexibility both in terms of the conditioning of licenses and in the waiving of fees. The waiving of fees we've managed, or we've proposed to do in a very limited way. It would only affect those activities either occurring on city property or otherwise involving a governmental unit. We think that there may be some events which would otherwise be special events that a waiver fee as a matter of comity with other types of governmental units might be appropriate. With respect to the flexibility, as we looked at the regulations, one of the things that did occur to us is that the proliferation of categories was often to try to provide little tweaks here and little tweaks there to differentiate different types of uses. We thought that the better approach would be to authorize the liquor commissioner to provide for conditions that could address those unique circumstances as they come up. One of the other factors that came into play on that is, and particularly with the gas station, which is something that we recently discussed in terms of liquor, is that things such as how a store is laid out, where the supervisory employees are located vis-a-vis where the alcoholic liquors are stored, can have an impact as to the ability to watch over and to avoid improper sales in a facility. We thought that was better done through the use of conditions on particular permits rather than trying to come up with a set of general regulations that will lead us to another path of numerous slightly differentiated license categories. We did eliminate the restriction on gas station that's currently, excuse me, that's currently in the code, and we have made some general updates to reflect either changes in law or reflection of what we have found to be better practices in our experience both here and elsewhere. So that is a summary of what you have before you. I would note one final point. With the number of special license categories, one of the primary distinctions that we found in the code currently is that they are often distinguished based on the fee. And oftentimes not-for-profit organizations are viewed as getting a lower fee, and other events are charged a higher fee. The council could certainly narrow the number of special event licenses too, but we didn't want to go tinkering too much with those fees since each of those were identified in discrete instances in the past, and we didn't think it was really our place to change it. Rather, we wanted to at least raise that with the council as far as an approach to take if you wish to see those categories further narrowed.
follow up on your last point. And maybe you just answered it, but I couldn't figure it out.
My cardiac impression was.
The fact that some of the Lovell's and Francesca's have a liquor fee rate that's different by $400, is it, or? Yeah. One's a C1 and one's a C2.
Oh, under the current?
Well, is the blue
I'm
letters?
sorry, you're talking about under the, on the chart.
On the chart, a C1 is Francesca's and a C2 is Lovell's. And is the blue line the proposed for the first reading?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I'm following.
I'm on page of the 33 of the ordinance.
Oh, okay, you're in color, I am not.
I'm sorry. I mean, aside from decor and menu,
Oh, the difference between the two is that the C2 also allows off-premises sales.
so these people could have C1, but they chose C2 for that flexibility.
Correct.
So is that kind of rationale consistent? Because it would be,
The way that we have generally structured the fees, this is in the current ordinance and as reflected here, I think there was at staff's recommendation, there's been a slight increase in all the fees, but it's been uniformly applied, is that the more things you can do, for example, if you sell, instead of just beer and wine, you get to sell liquor, it's going to be alcoholic spirits, it's going to be a slightly more expensive license. If you're going to have both on and off-site consumption, that's going to have a slightly higher fee attached to it than if it's just on-site or just off-site. So there's a graduated fee based on the amount of authorization you have to purvey the alcohol.
okay. Thank you.
Vic, I have a question. And it regards the sale of liquor at gas stations. I was just wondering what our neighboring communities do. I know Libertyville does not allow liquor to be sold from gas stations. Pretty sure Highland Park doesn't as well. I don't know if Lake Bluff has any gas stations. So it was just Bannockburn. What can you tell us?
I can tell you that it varies from community to community. I remember it was probably about a dozen years ago that the village of Grays Lake had a elongated conversation about whether or not to allow sales at gas stations. Ultimately, they decided to do so. I don't know that they have found any material increase in the incident of DUI arrests or anything like that.
I guess I'm most concerned, I guess my question centers more upon the communities that are closest to us and most similar to us.
Alderman, I would just say that we can, between first and second reading, we can bring back to you a survey of the 13 North Shore communities and communities like us and survey which ones do or which ones do not authorize at a gas station. So we'll have that before your next meeting.
Just a hitchhike on that. I think I would prefer that we leave the language the same regarding gas stations until council has further deliberations on the specific issue that we discussed, I guess, not at the last meeting because I wasn't at the last meeting, but the one before that. I think it's too early to make that change when we're kind of still right in the middle of that deliberation. Did I make my...
Yeah, we haven't vetted that fully.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't vetted it. I just think it's kind of, it's jumping too far ahead and kind of taking the play away from us, so to speak.
Yeah. I'm just, I mean, from my own point of view, I have trouble supporting the sale of liquor in gas stations. I really think it's a character issue.
Me
And-
too, and I don't want to, and I'd prefer not to jump to that as if we're conceding the point. Now, I reserve the right to change my mind, but I'd prefer not to have that language change in there right now until council decides to make that change.
So Vic, just a point of clarification, if we were to leave that in, but then in the future take up for consideration and approve, in this case, the Shell station having packaged sales, would we need to modify the code again?
The two things that we would, and we do this as a matter of general course, is that anytime a license is expiring and is not renewed, the number ratchets down, and so we always have the council come back and approve the next license. That gives the council much greater discretion in terms of whether or not to even allow a new licensee. With respect to the Shell station, if we retain the language that's currently in the code and later do a reversal and allow it, the two things we would need to do would be to increase the number for whatever category that would be, and again, we anticipated it would probably be an A2 based on the revised draft. And we would then eliminate the language that you see as black line here, which would, for the second reading, we can restore that language.
But should we not have a discussion as to whether we think this is the direction we should head in at some point?
To me, by making those language changes right now, we're conceding the point that the gas station is perhaps okay. And I'm just not willing to jump to that point right now.
But I think the other, quickly, Bob, I think the other point, though, is every one of these licenses will still be vetted and discussed at the council before they would be approved or not approved. Am I correct?
For clarification, one of the reasons why we did strike that was because of the discussion that had been commenced, and we figured that this was the best way to have that discussion further. And so if the council's inclination is either to not allow the gas stations or to defer that discussion, we'll just restore the language for the final draft. Second, while any new license would certainly come before the council, renewed licenses will not. So there is an element of, once you make the determination, unless somebody loses the license because of its revocation or they simply allow it to lapse, we would have the same number of licenses and the renewal process would allow it to come in. So there will be some of these, I think the ones that are in red on the overhead are the ones that are new, and those are the ones that would be coming to the council.
The only item I would add is that at the last council meeting, staff was directed to meet with the proprietor of the Shell station. I know the chief of police has met with them. I know that Kathy Cerniak has met with them because they indicated some interest in doing some other improvements to the site. We will bring back to you at the next meeting. We can strike the language so it's out of the code, but we can bring back to you then a full report of what we found. If you've been in the Shell station recently, you see they've already started to move some things around and to try and clean some things up, I think based on some of the input that they got from the chief about concerns he would have of allowing it with the conditions that were previously in place at that point in time. But then we can also have this language, we'll just have as a part of the memo, so if you want to come back and modify it, we can do that at any time.
And my concern has nothing to do with this individual proprietor, and he runs a great operation, and he's a good neighbor, and he's been here a long, long time. It's much more basic with that than that, as to whether this is something as a community we want to do, if it's who we are.
Right.
So.
I think we're too far forward on our skis.
On our fees?
Skis.
Oh, on our skis, okay.
Right. Well, we can talk about fees later.
Yeah, right. I was going to say,
That's
you
just,
want to reduce
that's
fees.
that's just me and where I'm at on this thing.
Sure.
I wasn't there when we talked about it. I was at best up in the air. And the more I thought about it after the meeting, the more I was not inclined to do it. Now, I won't go into the reasons right now because there'll be a time and a place for that, but, yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Can I ask what the logic is behind not allowing somebody who is not a citizen of the United States to get a liquor license? In other words, if I was from France and I moved here and I'm a legal resident here and I wanted to open a French restaurant and serve French wine, I couldn't get a liquor license?
You would have to set up a corporation and have the corporation be the liquor license holder as an Illinois corporation. But the State of Illinois Liquor Control Commission, or Liquor Control Act, does not permit that if you were just a French citizen on your own. So because it's a General Assembly, I will not even effort to come up with logic.
Even if you were an entrepreneur.
A couple of technical questions. There's no F6 up there, and there's one in the code. That's just because the example's so evident that it's.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
There, losing my voice. Sorry, but there's an F6 class in the first reading of the code, and of course it's for city-owned property or school grounds. So maybe that's why there's no explanation up there. But it doesn't mean that one of these are more current, or it's this code with the color copy that we see that we're reviewing. And if it is, why would we charge any fee for that liquor license unless it's required? And then the F7 doesn't have a dollar amount in it for the BMW. Is that?
Right, those are the two new fees, and again, I don't feel that it's my role to be offering a number. That's really a council discussion.
Does that get resolved tonight then, so we could? What do we do with first reading if there's blank spots?
I would hope that would be one of the things that there'd be some discussion on, so we can fill that blank for the next one. Again, the F6 would have been the Oktoberfest, which we allowed as a experiment last time. If we're going to do this on a repeated basis, we should have a formal license for it. The F7 would be the BMW.
And Vic, just to clarify, every one of these new licenses will come to the council for approval.
Yes, the red.
Correct.
Up there, correct.
And
I should add one thing. When we did the numbers, which is on page 39 of the packet, we may have counted some of the red ones in this number. So we're going to have to go through one more time and make sure we have it right. If the council wants to have any of these specific ones already plugged into the code for your next consideration, that would be valuable to know. Otherwise, they will come back to you as a separate ordinance at a separate time.
And I have one other question, if we may.
Just follow up on that, because I think setting Shell aside for a moment, Westwood Bistro, we certainly have talked about as a part of their special use permit. Kemper is just taking over the operations at Deerpath Golf Course. And I think we've talked about, well, we haven't talked about Presbyterian Homes. That has just come in within the last couple of weeks, I think. So we would want to make sure that if, much like we talked about here this evening with the Shell station, if there's something that you do not want us to have on here, we should pull that out as well. Because yes, indeed, while it does come forward, if the council approves second reading of the ordinance and the numbers are in there, then there is a license available for the liquor commissioner to award.
And Bob, I know when we got the letter of interest from the Shell station, we got a letter. We didn't get, there's no real formal application that an applicant needs to complete, right?
Well, there is an application. I don't think it's a formal application that comes before the city council in a written format. Typically what will happen is that it will be presented to you as a part of an ordinance amending your alcoholic beverage code, and then you could debate it and talk about it at that point in time. And that's just been the past practice of how we then as you can see in each here, it lists the number of licenses that are available. And so if I wanted to come in and ask for a license, you'd have to amend the code to make a license available, and then if the council approves the ordinance, then you can go ahead and issue it.
Well, and I should add that there's an interim phaser. They have to make the application once it's available. The application does have significant vetting. It does go through fingerprinting and other types of reviews. So there is both a council level review in terms of whether to allow the license, and then there is an administrative review in terms of the qualifications of the licensee.
That's where I was going.
That includes also a review by the state of Illinois as well.
Just out of curiosity, is the Shell station the last gas station in Lake Forest?
And the BP, you just have the two.
Where's the BP?
On Western.
On Western. Car wash. Car wash.
Oh, okay.
Yep, those are the only two.
When you get the information on the other communities, could you put down how many gas stations there are? I hate to drive out any more gas stations in Lake Forest.
I've got a couple of recommendations on 14 and 15. That's F6 and F7. Just so we can get it more complete, if it's okay with the council. I think in both cases, things like school grounds or city-owned property like Oktoberfest, the fee should be nominal, not as much a source of revenue as something to cover any level of expense that might be associated with it, so it's not a money loser. And I don't know what that is. And this one ends in 72 hours. The F7 that would include the BMW tournament also has a 24-hour fee, which should also be nominal to encourage this sort of thing if we like it, and I think we do. But there's no time limit on it, which means if the sporting event were redefined by the petitioner as a 3-year event at $25, they could perpetuate a liquor license potentially. I don't know who would, but the protections are in 14 but not 15 for an overall time limit. And maybe it should just say the time limit needs to be defined before the license is given, but it's open-ended, just a fee per every 24 hours. And those are my 2 comments on those that appear to need some help.
I'd like to make one final comment. I believe the Shell station is a convenience store, not a gas station. It's a convenience store that added gas pumps, the same way a 7-Eleven in other parts of the United States or whatever, but it's not a gas station.
Well, I think that it's both. I mean, 98% of the people that go to that station go there in a car. They go in a car and they leave in a car, at least from what I can see.
What if you have a meal at one of the restaurants and you get gas?
What's that?
If you have a meal at one of the restaurants and you get gas.
Then it was tainted food. Well, and one of the things that we can ask the owner to provide to follow up on Alderman Reisenberg's point, that is what we have heard, is that the margins of what gas station owners sell gas for and earn as a result of that, if they had to live on gas sales alone, they'd be out of business. And so the sale of food and drink and all that is what sort of keeps them going. I don't know that to be a fact, and we can certainly ask them to give us a breakdown. That's what we have been told, but I think we can come back to that. And I think that also gets to Alderman Palmer's point about looking at this as if it may be a necessary evil to keep gas stations in town.
Yes, I understand that point. But convenience stores add gas pumps to bring in customers. Do most of them come there? Probably because of the size of the parking, you're absolutely right. But convenience stores add gas stations. Similar to why did Costco put in 12 gas pumps? Now, is Costco a gas station? I don't think so. But they do that to drive traffic. But it's still a big box store. And the what we refer to as the Shell, is the Shell station is really a convenience store that added gas pumps to build traffic.
Right. Yeah, because the other station we have in town also has the car wash, and they have full service, car service, you know,
Right.
repairs and so forth.
That is a gas station.
That's right.
Yeah, you want a tire change, they'll change a tire. You
Right.
gotta- Right.
It's a car wash that sells gas.
There you go. Okay, I'm going to say no more this evening. I've finished.
So tonight, I think I've heard the council say that the idea would be to perhaps move this along with a couple of modifications. Number one is to replace the wording that restricts licenses for gas stations. And two, to clean up and clarify some of the classifications as it relates to fees and time frame, right? If I heard anything else there that?
The only follow-up to Alderman Moore's point is if you look at the number 18 G1 license, that has a fee of $200. That may be along the lines, Alderman, of what you're looking at. It's a nominal fee, but at least it covers your costs, and it covers the cost of processing the application and so forth. So,
And maybe a particular one, did Mary run part of the Oktoberfest?
No.
Did you know? I'm sorry, I thought you might have.
No.
But maybe there's a group of fees that require policemen or barricades, or at the very least, or if we don't have an event cost, maybe that's related to the barricading of the beer area from the I don't know, but.
well, you might recall in that case, they also needed to get a special event permit, and as a part of that,
And
we
that
did
would have covered
require
that.
that they have a police officer there during the event. They had to pay for the police officer, so there were some additional costs over and above, but at that time, we didn't even know what to charge them because we didn't really have
Yeah,
a
but a
liquor.
low fee, just so they can.
Right.
If we like these events.
Right.
And I think so far, when we've heard the reports back, we've congratulated the events, so I'm assuming that we like them.
Right. And that's, I think, the most nominal fee that you have is the G1.
I already moved up to the other part of the book. I can find my spot again.
So again, unless there's any other discussion or modifications, I think perhaps we could call for a motion with modifications to the first reading as we discussed. Does that make sense?
Sounds.
I see shaking of heads. Can I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
And I think we need a roll call vote.
First reading was twice.
Okay. I get bad info. That's all right.
You're always good with a roll call.
I'm safer with roll call vote. How about we do a roll call vote?
Alderman Novit.
Aye.
Alderman Waldeck.
Aye.
Alderman Moore.
Aye.
Alderman Tack. Alderman Reisenberg.
Aye.
Alderman Palmer. Alderman Adelman.
Aye.
7 yea, 0 nay, motion carries.
Thank you, Betty, very much. Moving on, next topic, new business. Any new business to come before the council this evening? No. Any additional items for council discussion? And hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're done. French discussion and all, so.
Now, what is this thing?
That's your thumb drive that talks about economic development.